Hey Orange, guess what?
What?
Pac-Man... Pac-Palooza continues. How are we celebrating the Great Yellow One today? We'll be playing a Pac-Man game and another Namco Museum game for the Switch, Namco Museum Archives Volume 2. Just like I did with Pac-Man Arrangement, the main focus will be on the Pac-Man game itself, but I'll do an overview of the collection, because it's bizarre to say the least. But what do you expect? It released in 2020, so let's begin. Taking a look at the list of games, we have Dig Dug 2, which I'm sure some of you have never even heard about, Super Xevious, which I'm certain even less of you have heard about, Pac Land, okay, you get the idea, Legacy of the Wizard, well at least it's better than the Legacy of the Super Mario Bros. Movie, Rolling Thunder, Dragon Buster 2, Mendel Palace, Gab Plus, and what is perhaps the most obscure game in the entire collection, Galaga. This is a game I'm very certain a lot of you have never even heard about, and have never played. And of course, what would Namco Museum be without Battle City? So the weird thing about this collection isn't so much the games, they're more obscure, but we've seen obscure game collections before. We've seen it with Sonic Gems collection, and even Namco Museum Remix, which I covered last week. The weird thing about this collection is that these are the Famicom ports. I get it, preserving legacy content is important, but why would Bandai Namco use the Famicom versions when the arcade versions are superior in every way? Other than Pac Land, I'm pretty sure all of these had arcade counterparts. I know for certain Dig Dug 2 did, but the game we're going to look at today is Pac Land. So starting up this game, I really wish I could play the arcade version, but it's not in any Namco Museum game to my knowledge, so this is the only way to play it. Other than worse graphics, the core concept remains the same. So this is Pac Land, originally released in arcades in 1984. This is an official sequel to Pac-Man. They just ported it to the Famicom in 1985. So just like with the other official sequels to Pac-Man, the gameplay is very different compared to Pac-Man, well at least with most of them. With Pac-Mania and Pac-Man Arrangement, those definitely do feel like successors to Pac-Man, but Super Pac-Man, Pac-and-Pal, and Pac Land are all very different games. However, with Super Pac-Man and Pac-and-Pal, they were still maze games. This is an entirely different genre, being a 2D side-scroller. What makes this game very interesting is not the fact that it's a 2D side-scroller. Every series has had at least one, even Chibi... Actually, we're not going to talk about Chibi Rose Whiplash. But what's interesting about this game is that it came an entire year before Super Mario Bros. So I'm wondering, did Miyamoto get any inspiration from this game? After all, it's no secret he's a huge Pac-Man fan. Nah, that couldn't be possible. Pac-Man's going to church, so the idea of Miyamoto using that as an influence for Super Mario Bros. Is quite devilish. What in the world would he be thinking? Halloween's coming up, get the hint. So just what I think of the gameplay overall, because, like I said before, it's very different compared to Pac-Man. So the weird thing about this game, besides it being a 2D side-scroller, is the controls. When you play a 2D side-scroller, or any 2D game, you expect to use a D-pad to move, and the buttons to jump or attack. But that's not how it works here. You actually move with the buttons, and use the D-pad to jump, which is very bizarre to say the least. I can't fully get used to the controls, but you will at some point, and even then, it's not that great of a control scheme. But once you get used to it, you'll mostly get the hang of it, and it's a very fun game. It's totally different from what you'd expect from, you know, any Pac-Man game at that time. And a funny story about this is that when it came to the Bally Midway sequels, which were Miss Pac-Man, Baby Pac-Man, Junior Pac-Man, and Professor Pac-Man, that last one, Professor Pac-Man, did so poorly that a lot of the cabinets were converted into Pac Land cabinets. Pretty interesting fact. Although I've never played Professor Pac-Man, so I wonder what the game was like other than just being a trivia game. All I saw was it's very basic. But, as I said before, this is a very fun game. It's not one of the best 2D side-scrollers, mainly due to the controls, and the graphics for the Famicom are quite weak. You can see that this was a very early Famicom game. It doesn't look the best, the graphics aren't that detailed. Pac-Man is missing his nose, which, that's a staple feature of Pac-Man. I got your nose, Pac-Man! I got your nose! But anyways, this is still a very fun game despite how bizarre it is, and it might not look the best, but as the saying goes in gaming, good graphics don't always make a better game. I do have an issue with this game though. At the end of the world, you have to go back to the stage in reverse, very similar to how you would in Wario Land 4 and Wario Land Shake It. However, it's very confusing on where to go because of the graphics in this game. So you will see that things you were jumping over before are actually platforms now. Like the cherries, for example, are on the bottom of the screen, and it looks like a bottomless pit, which is the weirdest thing. So you kind of have invisible platforms, which is very weird. So you kind of keep on jumping like this, kind of reminds me of the Cheetah Men 2 glitch. And I gotta say, that is not good game design. I'm not sure if it was better in the arcade version, but I'm not a fan of that. So yeah, what would I give Pac-Man if I were to rate it out of 10? I would probably say the Famicom version I'm playing gets a solid 6.5. It doesn't look the prettiest, the controls are hard to get used to, but it's still a very cool Pac-Man game. But yeah, if you want to play it yourself, it's in Namco Museum Archives Volume 2 on the Switch. I got it for a whopping $5. It was totally worth it despite these being the Famicom ports of the game. And it looks like we're going back in another direction again, and oh wow, we got blocks that look very similar to Super Mario Brothers. Okay, I'm having second thoughts, but I just jumped into the water and got a game over. I did not expect that to happen. But anyways guys, have you played Pac Land, and what do you think of it? Anyways, thanks for watching, and keep calm and waka on.